Governor Seong-un-do, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to be here again. I was here in 2015 for the Incheon Declaration. Those were just words. But 10 years later, you can see how Incheon has become a global hub for global citizenship. And I believe that's true for Korea as a country. I don't think there's any better example in the world of a country that has propelled its future through education, from one of the poorest nations in the OECD to the frontier of global social and technological development. But we need to recognize that the education of the past has also left this world with some fundamental disconnects. You can think of the disconnect between the infinite growth imperative and the finite resources of our planet, between the financial economy and the real economy, between the wealthy and the poor, between what we call our gross domestic product, the measure of progress, and the well-being of people, between what is technologically possible and the social needs of people, and between the way we run our countries and the voicelessness of so many. If we want to see a different world, we have to build different education systems. And global competency is at the very, very heart of this. If you think about how a tiny virus has disrupted our education systems, our societies a few years ago, and the future will always surprise us. Climate change is going to disrupt our lives a lot more than the pandemic, and artificial intelligence puts into question many things that we took for granted. We know how to educate second-class robots, people who are very good at repeating what we told them. But what's going to make us human in a world in which the kind of things that are easy to teach and maybe easy to test have become easy to digitize and automate? And there's so many disruptors that you can put into this equation. When you look at education today, you can see how Korea excels in its academic outcomes. Year after year, Korea tops the charts when it comes to mathematics and science and reading. One of the world's most advanced systems in academic outcomes. But global competency is about more than academic achievement. And if you look to other dimensions, you can see there's a lot of room to develop for Korea. Korean students, by international standards, are not happy students. You can see their emotional resilience is often quite limited. In this world, you need to reinvent yourself every day new. Not just to learn, but also to unlearn and relearn when the context around you changes. You can see the school-leisure balance can improve. So you can see on some dimensions, global competency is well developed. In other dimensions, there's room to grow. Let me bring you to the other end of the world. If you look to a country like Peru, you can see the yellow bar is very short. Now, Peruvian children still struggle with mathematics and science, but they have other strengths. You can see there are happy children. They have a strong level of emotional resilience. They have very strong social relationships. And all those are very important aspects of global citizenship in the world of tomorrow. Now, when you look at the two countries, Korea and Peru, you will say to yourself, well, maybe we have to make a choice. Either we educate students, we push them very hard academically, and then they will not be so happy, or we focus on the well-being of students, and then we lose out academically. But, you can see a country like Denmark. That's pretty good on most of these things. Not quite as good as Korea in academic outcomes, but not quite as good as Peru on the well-being, but in pretty balanced ways. And the message is very clear. In tomorrow's world, we do not have to compromise academic excellence for those other dimensions of global competencies. We can reconcile those different aspects, and that's really, really important. We also saw recently that, 15-year-olds often report lower levels of creativity than 10-year-olds. We lose some of that energy that is so important in today's world. Unfortunately, I don't have data for Incheon, because Incheon region did not take that comparison, but I have data for the region of Daegu from Korea. And you can see the same trend that we see in other countries, that we are losing some of the energy of global citizenship that we need for tomorrow. How can we build that energy? A lot has to do with the mindset, not the content, the mindset of people. You can see, for example, a strong relationship across country between, on the one hand, the academic success of a nation and the mindset that young people are building. In countries on the right side, where young people believe, if I study hard, if I try hard, my teachers will help me, I will be successful. You can see generally success is also well developed. On the left side, where students often believe, it's all about the intelligence I was born with, those systems are not successful. Success in tomorrow's world is not just about what I know, it's very much about the kind of beliefs that I have and my potential to change this world. Other dimensions, if you think about, how can we strengthen one of those ingredients of global competency, creativity, you can see some of the dimensions have to do with our capacity to imagine, to build in our education systems. Not just to observe, to consume, but to build. You can see where that is better developed, global competency is higher developed. The openness to new ideas, to novel ideas, to perspectives we're unfamiliar with. Art and experience. Often we consider art as a kind of extracurricular aspect, something that we put on top of education. But in tomorrow's world, it could be the heart of education, on which we build other things. And then, that sense of self-efficacy. Another dimension that I want to highlight that doesn't often get enough attention are the social and emotional dimensions of global competency. Again, when you think about what predicts creativity, it's your capacity to appreciate different ways of thinking, to be open to new ideas. Global competency is not just about knowledge, it's about our willingness to engage with different ways of thinking, to be open to different cultures. Very, very important. Sometimes, in the technological world today, technology tries to push you to people who think like you, who look like you, who walk like you. Global competency is the antidote to that. Being able to be open to novelty. Curiosity, I already mentioned that. Persistence. Innovation in today's world is not just about you having a great idea, but it's very much about you being open to novel ideas and persistent, being resistant to stress, assertive, developing social skills, emotional control. All of those are really, really important aspects of global competency. Why do I say this? Because in tomorrow's world, many of these things will be much harder. If you look around the world, we see that global conflict is on the rise. There are more and more tensions in our world. You can see global trade restrictions. It's becoming harder for countries to cooperate internationally. There are more and more walls and barriers between our economies. There are a reaction of people. You can see in many parts of the world that the willingness of people to engage in democratic processes is on the decline. And global citizenship is very, very important to re-energize. On the more positive side, young people today are much more open to change their jobs, to engage with new careers. So education is no longer about preparing you for one job, but to prepare you to be open to create tomorrow's jobs. It's a very, very important aspect of global citizenship, that ability and willingness to engage with the unfamiliar, not just follow a predicted path. We used to learn to do our work, and now learning is our work. We can see, on our economies now, employment in the green energy sector is now outpacing employment in the brown energy sector. People need to redeploy their skills in novel contexts. Very, very important. At the same time, we see some of the challenges. Every teacher, every student knows about the smartphone addiction of young people. And you can see why. If you look actually at technology exposure in schools, you can see that the digital world is becoming the real world for young people. And you can see Korea is very much at the frontier where the exposure of young people to technology is very high. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? The answer is mixed. You can see when teachers are, creative designers of innovative learning environments, technology can help students learn in more granular ways, more interactive ways. But we can also see, the more students use their own smartphone at school, the worse they come out on many dimensions of global competence, including academic outcomes. So it's a double-edged sword. Technology is not a magic power, it's just an amazing amplifier, a great accelerator. It will amplify good ideas and good practice and also reinforce bad educational practice. We see, for example, where students are addicted to technology, they do less well academically, they are less happy with their lives, they are less in control of their emotions. We need to understand those dimensions if we want to make young people fit for the world of tomorrow. And that also explains why, in the times in which we live, mental health has become the biggest health concern of people in OECD countries. There's still many other issues we worry about, but none is as important as our mental well-being. Our physical well-being is less important to people when you ask them about those kinds of health-related challenges. You can call all of this a race between education and technology. Before the first industrial revolution, neither technology nor education mattered much for the vast majority of people. But then the industrial revolution, pushed technology ahead of the capabilities of people. And it created a huge amount of social pain. But then, we built our school systems, we made people compatible with the industrial, paradigms, and it was very successful for many decades, including in Korea, huge industrial power. But today we see the digital revolution, once more racing ahead against the capabilities of people. Now, artificial intelligence can compete with many old human capabilities. And if we do not change this, we will see again more social pain. We will see young people graduating from universities having difficulties finding a good job. And at the same time, employers increasingly say, we cannot find the people with the skills we need. So turning this once more around is the challenge of our times. Making sure that people are ahead of the times, not following behind it. And that is about finding that right balance between, resilience and sustainability. Yes, young people hopefully will keep this world in a better balance than we were able, the older generation. But at the same time, they also need to be more able to live in a world that is out of balance, to become more resilient, more open to change. If you ask yourself, what is global competency really about? What do we expect from education? Probably we have more opinions on that than, people in this room. But one thing is clear, the first thing education should be doing is help you find out, why you are here on this planet. What is important to you? What do you want to achieve in your life? To help you find out where you can become really good at. Discover your hidden talents. But finding your passion will not make you happy. Now, what makes us happy in life is often, make a difference to the people around us, to our communities. Helping young people find out, what the world expects from them, and ultimately, translate better skills into better jobs and better lives. Those dimensions of global competency are the ones that we need to strengthen if we want to do that. In our assessment of global competency in PISA, we ask ourselves some of the questions, And for example, to what extent are young people able to appreciate different perspectives, are willing to engage with the views of others, and the results are mixed. You can see, about half of the students, engage with that, but the other half not. And we can see, for example, trying to sort of find out, why someone may be upset about it. It's not that common as we want it. When you think about the interest of students to learn about other cultures, a very important element of global competence, you can see, yes, half of the students are ready to do that, but the other half not. For example, I want to learn more about other countries, other cultures. You can see it's just 40%. There's a lot more that we need to achieve to make sure that 100% of young people are open to the world. Because global competence is not about those who travel internationally. It's arrived at everybody's doorsteps. It arrives at your homes. When you turn on the television, when you meet your neighbor, that's why you need global competence. And you can see we're not yet ready for that. No. We also see that the attitude of young people to other people. No. Fortunately, Korea is among the top performers with Brazil and Canada. Most young people here are open to people from different cultures, but it's not true everywhere in the world. In some other countries, students are very negative, very hostile to other perspectives. We need to change those dimensions. And the reason I say that, because your capacity for global competency to appreciate different perspectives is a strong predictor for the respect that you have for other cultures. And that, shapes your attitudes to immigrants. And that, changes your cognitive ability. And ultimately, it is also about your interest in people who are different from you. Those things are all interconnected. Global competency is the resource through which we build many, many other skills that matter in the lives in which we are today. The last point I want to make is, are young people able to engage in open dialogue? You can see in Korean schools it's not so common to meet people from other cultures yet. It's still a quite homogeneous society. There are other countries like in Switzerland where this is much, much more common, much more appreciated. I say that because our data show that it's a very robust predictor for students' global competency. Being able to connect with people, being able to see other people around yourself helps to explain, some of the learning outcomes. Foreign languages. Can you speak another language than your own? A language is not just a communication tool, but it's a window to another culture. And you can see very, very clearly that, students who learn multiple languages have a huge advantage to understand different cultures, different ways of thinking. You can see that very, very clearly, the more languages young people speak, the more respect they have for other ideas, other ways of thinking, other cultures. So language is another of those dimensions. And last but not least, learning about other cultures at school. And again, you can see many schools teach young people about other cultures. That is very common. You learn something from your teacher about other cultures. But when you look actually the experience, do you have a first-hand experience at school? That's much more limited. But that's actually where global competency is born. It's not just what you hear, but what you do. And there's a lot more that we can do about this. For example, celebrating other cultures' festivals at your school. You can see in Singapore, in Panama, in Brazil, that's very common. But if you look to, Korea is very rare still, but it's one of the most powerful ways how you can build that interest and engagement with other kind of cultures. Now, the more young people actually do in school, not just listen to, learn to, the more young people do, the more likely they will have more positive attitudes towards, global citizenship and other people, other cultures. Are our teachers ready for that? Well, we surveyed teachers very recently, and you can see on the one hand, teachers are very well prepared to teach the subject. No? They are very well prepared for their pedagogies. But when you look at global, engagement, can I teach students from different cultural backgrounds, with different ideas, different mindsets. You can see very clear that many teachers today still struggle with that. They don't feel that their education has prepared them sufficiently to help young people to become global citizenship. So investing in our teachers today, giving them the resources, the experience, is going to be very, very important to move from the traditional topics to the emerging ones. Why is that so important? Because the most important resources for student learning is not about the school books, the curriculum, or technology. It's the relationship with their teachers. The number one predictor of success in global competence, in academic achievement, in anything that we measure, is the quality of student relationships. And you can see it's also the most important predictor for academic outcomes. That's very, very important. Education is not a transactional business. It's a social, it's a relational experience. Global competency is about social and relational experiences. Here's an interesting question that we ask students, what makes you nervous? And many people, for example, in Korea, think it's the exam. It's the pressure that young people have that makes them anxious in life. We don't find that relationship. We don't find a strong relationship between exam pressure and students' anxiety. The most important predictor for student anxiety is about a lack of support that young people feel from the people around them, including teachers. Conversely, when students feel the support of their teachers, that personal relationship, you can see their anxiety reduces. We ask students one simple question, If you come back to your school in 3 years' time, do you think your teacher will be excited to see you? And where students say yes, they are not worried about anything. They feel very happy, very confident in their lives. Where students think no, they get very anxious. So again, anxiety is very much about the quality of those relationships. Global competency is all about building those kinds of connections and relationships. It's empathy at the global world. And again, Incheon started with that story, with the Incheon Declaration in 2015. It started putting this in words, and you can see it today in action. But as you can also see, we're just at the beginning of this road. The world is, strengthening its interconnection, and the young people are the ones that will need to shape those interconnections. So again, my congratulations to you, and my wishes for actually not, stopping at this path, but for continuing on this path to build stronger citizenships for tomorrow's world. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.